to do a live stream because I thought this was very interesting. And I told you I can go a lot of different directions. And I think that's why people appreciate my channel because I can go a lot of different directions pertaining to a lot of different subject matter and content. That's why I feel I'm one of the best out there, one of the most versatile out there. Now, there are certain subjects that I'd rather not talk about, particularly like politics and that kind of stuff and relationship stuff. But, I'll do it every once in a while. But this is a particular subject that I thought I would talk about. And shout out to the homie Coffee, man. That's my guy, Coffee from LA, you know. And I wanted to have this discussion. I feel like this is gonna be a fun discussion because this is gonna be one of these discussions like where it's not gonna be clear cut and dry. Like what this is very opinionated, it's subjective, but it's something that we can talk about. And let's keep it, let's not go overboard. Let's not get overzealous with the conversation. Everybody is free to voice their opinion, but let's not, you know, let's not get too, let's not get too emotional over this. But okay, Billboard recently, I guess they put out what they feel is their version or what they feel is according to them. I don't know how they came up with this analysis, like what is the greatest hip hop album of all time, because like I said, this is subjective. But according to them, Nas Illmatic is the greatest hip hop album of all time. Um, hmm. Do I agree with that? Probably not. Probably not. Listen, Illmatic is a classic. If I had a top 15, maybe a top 10, I believe that probably Illmatic would make it. Illmatic was an awesome, and when I say it was an awesome album, but I can make an argument that Stillmatic was just as good as Illmatic or even better. It's just like, I'll give you another example. A lot of people talk about Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style album, but I can make an argument that The Last Meal was just as good as Doggy Style. Same thing with A Tribe Called Quest. A lot of people talk about the low end theory, but I feel like Midnight Marauders was better. I feel like Midnight Marauders was better than the low end theory. But when I think about it, right off the top of my head, I can name a few albums that I would put ahead of Nas Illmatic. If you just wanted to have like random basic conversation, on the fly conversation, like if somebody immediately started talking about that, I probably would rank Ready to Die, All Eyes on Me, Doggy Style, The Chronic, Death Certificate by Ice Cube. I would probably rank all those albums higher than Illmatic. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Illmatic was a cold album. When I listened to it, listen to how he was dropping his bars, the lyrical content. Yeah, it stood out. But to say that it's the greatest hip hop album of all time, and I know the Jay-Z fans gonna be like, well, what about Reasonable Doubt? Yeah, okay, Reasonable Doubt was good. Reasonable Doubt was very good. Like, just like if they had Reasonable Doubt ranked the greatest album of all time, I know I would disagree with that. I know I would disagree with that. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like I said, I just named a few albums that I would have ranked higher than Illmatic, but Illmatic was dope. It really was. It it really was. And the thing about Illmatic, it didn't have a lot of songs on it by, at the time that was going on with hip hop, standards. Because a lot of times, most hip hop albums would have 13, 14, 15 songs, in the 90s going into the 2000s. It started, I don't know, maybe I think to a certain degree albums started to get oversaturated because I felt like, damn, you was putting too many songs on one album. But now the funny thing is, now in this day and age, now the content is very short now. Now what you got is rappers making songs instead of 3 or 4 verses. Now they're doing 2 verses. And back in the day, the average song used to be around, I say, between 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes. Now the average hip hop song is like 2 minutes now. 3 minutes at best to a certain degree, depending on who the artist is. And to me, that just clarifies that these rappers now got lazy. They've got lazy with their writing. That's just something that's just something that I'm not feeling. I feel like now people are mass producing stuff. Like, yeah, they're putting out a lot of songs and singles and all that kind of stuff. But when you listen to these albums and stuff, you just could see that these dudes are just lazy now. They're just lazy. Like me, when I was doing music, I was not lazy with my writing. I always tried to write like the best 48 bars, best 32 bars, unless I was going to have like a guest appearance. But I always set out to write at least 48 good bars. And that's not including if I had a guest appearance, whatever the case may be. And I still could write. I'm still considering getting back in the studio, putting out some, material, just random material, not like really trying to make an album and nothing like that, because them days have came and went. But like, I just thought it was interesting. And I'm just wondering, like, how did Billboard make that assessment that Illmatic is the greatest hip hop album of all time? I really would like to know that. Like, what type of research? Like, did they go by sales? Because I think Illmatic isn't even remotely close to being the highest selling hip hop album. I think Illmatic to this day has sold over 1 million copies since its release. Like, Illmatic came out, Illmatic came out 30 years ago. So, I mean, Illmatic came out about 30 years ago. And I think to this day it's sold like 1 million copies. I think now it's platinum. So my thing is, what are the guidelines? Like, what standards set the tone on what is the greatest of all time? And this is why we still to this day have this argument. Well, not me. There's no argument with me. This is not even for debate about Eminem being the greatest rapper of all time. I think if anybody black says that a white rapper is better than any black artist, I think you're a fucking coon. And I just think you're delusional. But then again, a lot of black people are delusional in this day and age. So, but I'm just really thinking about that. Like, what is the criteria for saying something is the greatest of all time? What criteria and what standards did Billboard come up with to make the assessment that Illmatic is the greatest album of all time? And like I said before, Illmatic was a banger. Illmatic was a banger. It was hard. It was like, it was there. Because I have Nas ranked higher than Jay-Z. Now, I'm gonna say this about Nas, and you have to admit, and I heard this from somebody that know Nas, why sometimes Nas would have what you call lackluster albums. And I'm gonna put this out there as well. Jay-Z didn't always bring heat neither. He didn't always come with good albums to me, you know. But that somebody said that Nas is like tone deaf. So Nas has problem picking out beats and stuff. So that's why sometimes Nas wouldn't bring it on all of his albums, because Nas just had some albums you just was like, okay. But then there were some that was just like, wow. Like Godson, underrated album. Illmatic, classic. Steelmatic, classic. Hip hop is dead. That was okay. Nostradamus, decent album. Nostradamus was decent, but there were just some albums that he just didn't bring it. He just didn't bring it. So I just find that very interesting that Billboard came with that assessment that Illmatic is the greatest album of all time. Because like I said before, my own assessment, I have a few albums ranked higher than Illmatic. And it's no disrespect to Nas. Yeah, I kind of understand that too. I think Steelmatic was I thought Steelmatic was special, because Steelmatic had arguably, and I do mean arguably, one of the greatest diss records of all time. And of course, Ether. Steelmatic, something was just special about Steelmatic. But Illmatic, it set the tone. It made us aware of what we was about to see in Nas, that we was about to see greatness. As far as lyrical content go, Nas is one of the best lyricists that I've ever seen in my life, ever heard in my life. But the problem is, as I said before, Nas has made a lot of studio albums, and he didn't always bring it on his albums. One dude that I think always brought it for the most part, like his first 5 albums was fire. DMX, his first 5 albums was fire. And I think DMX had like 5 straight albums debut #1. And that was that was unheard of. And then DMX, if I'm not mistaken, he released 2 albums within a year's time. And they both sold, like, I think his debut album is Dark and it's Hot. I think that sold like 4 million records. And then I think the next album, Blood of My Blood, Flesh of My Flesh, I think that sold like 3 million. So DMX was selling units. He outsold Jay-Z, to be honest with you. And that's what I'm saying. I could throw one of the DMX albums up in there. I could throw the debut DMX album up in there. So that's why it's kind of difficult for me to figure out how did Billboard come with that assessment. But I'm not like saying they're way off. But I'm just saying my personal opinion. I can name like a few albums that I would put ahead of it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Nas's people said that about him. Said that he's deftone. Said that he has problems picking beats. Oh yeah. I forgot about it. No, I'm just saying. Nas made some good albums, but I'm just saying there were just some that he didn't bring it. What was that double album that he made? Yeah, Nas made a double album. I didn't like that. Like I said, I was a big Nas fan. I was a big Nas fan, but then I bought a lot of his albums. But I have to admit, as a Nas fan, he didn't bring it on every album. And I understand after a while, it's kind of hard to stay, to have that hunger to continue to put out heat after heat after heat after heat rock. So I understand that. Only person that was kind of consistent for the most part, that was always dropping fire albums for the most part, was Snoop Dogg. That's why Snoop Dogg got a hell of a catalog. That's just real talk. Now, I'm not gonna lie. That album that Snoop made, The Dog Father, his second album, and that's when all that stuff went down with Dr. Dre. The Dog Father was horrible. Horrible album. Horrible. I mean, yes. I was trying to think what was the name of that album. That, like I said, Nas got some albums that you can forget about. So that, because I didn't like Hip Hop Is Dead at all. I thought I thought the record was dead. That Hip Hop Is Dead album wasn't. That's something that you rather not speak on. But like I said before, I think if Nas wasn't Deftone, I think Nas would have. If Nas would have, I'll put it to you this way: if Nas had got some of the beats that Jay-Z had got, and if Nas had used some of the producers that Jay-Z used to use, Nas didn't use people like, and that's the thing. Nas got a track or two from from Dr. Dre every once in a while, but Nas didn't like have what you would call well-known producers, and that used to always trip me out. Nas didn't use dudes like Premier on a regular basis. He didn't use Premier, Pete Rock, which I felt he should have. Nas, for the most part, he used relatively, um, he used mid-level producers. Now he used Timberland a couple of times, but what I'm saying was when he would put out an album, you would look at the production, you'd be like, man, who is these dudes? I'm saying on a regular basis, he didn't use what you would call the heavy hitters. Like to do like 4 or 5 songs, he might get one beat from Timberland, one beat from Premier, one beat from Pete Rock, guys like that. And that used to like trip me out. You'd just be like, man, who is this dude? And for the most part, Jay-Z, I mean, Nas didn't use dudes like Just Blaze, none of those guys. I'm like, damn, Eric Sermon, he didn't use none of those dudes. And that used to trip me out. DJ Premier, he working with somebody. He doing a whole album with somebody. I know Pete Rock, and if I'm not mistaken, Pete Rock and Common is it got something coming out, or they put out something. Premier is doing a whole album. Damn, who is Premier working with? I know. Damn, let me think. I know Premier just did a song with the Dog Pound. It was fire. Who the Hardest? Y'all need to check that out. Y'all need to check that out. It's Snoop Dogg, Lady of Rage, RBX, Corrupt, Das. Song is fire. Came out about a month ago. Hmm. Yeah, Premier. I cannot think of who he's working with. He doing a whole album with somebody. It's somebody that he used to work with from yesteryear though. I can't remember right now. It'll come to me later on. I gotta think about it. But yeah, when you critique Nas, that's always been his problem. Yeah, I done heard some tracks from that new Dog Pound album. It's fire. And shout out to the Lady of Rage. The Lady of Rage, unfortunately, she got caught in the middle of when all that death row stuff was going on. Because I feel like if the Lady of Rage would have got the type of production and promotion that she deserved, being from Farnsville, Virginia, or whatever she from, I think Lady of Rage had potential to become one of the greatest female artists of all time. But unfortunately, by the time debut album came out, it was just a lot of stuff going on. And then, basically her album faded into the night, came and went. So in the grand theme, in the grand scheme of things, damn, where do I rank Illmatic? Like if I like off the fly, off the fluke, if somebody asked me where do I rank Illmatic, and they said, okay, do you agree or disagree? Slightly disagree about Illmatic being the greatest rap album of all time. My own personal assessment, I wouldn't have Illmatic the greatest rap album of all time, but I understand why people have it and why Billboard. I'm not saying that Billboard is far off touch and far off base, but I would disagree with it. That's just my own personal assessment. And I would like to know who are the people that came to the conclusion about Illmatic. You know, I would like to know how they came to the conclusion, what research, um, who was the people that put this all together and came to the conclusion that that was the greatest album ever made. I would like to, I would like to talk to them. Maybe I'll do some research, but I feel like it's an interesting, conversation to have with you guys. Yeah, actually, actually Snoop did a song with the East Siders and the Dog Pound. I don't know if you know, Snoop Dogg has some serious issues with with Trey D, but we're not going to get into that. That's another video for another day. That is definitely it. What's up, man? That's definitely another video for another day. But me being a hip hop connoisseur, growing up in that era, the '90s era, the golden age of hip hop, as most of us call it, and listening to those albums, remembering when those albums first dropped. Like I said, Illmatic was different. It was different. And one thing about me, I wasn't a dude that was strictly stuck on uh West Coast stuff. Even though I feel to a certain degree the West Coast didn't get the props they deserved as far as what they contribute to hip hop, I listen to a lot of East Coast rap as well. I listen to the Mob Deeps of the world, the EPMD. Mob Deep is one of my favorite groups, Tribe Called Quest. And that's why I feel like, as far as my ears go, I have real diverse ears. Big LL Cool J fan, as well as I like the East Coast stuff. I liked a lot of the West Coast stuff, and I liked a lot of the Bay Area stuff, a lot of the local stuff, the regional stuff, like from the Oakland to Sacramento area, because I was a big fan of Sebo, still is a big Sebo fan, big fan of Marvelous. So, like I said, I'm well inclined, and I feel like I'm more than qualified to talk hip hop because I got 40 plus years experience. Like I said, I remember when Rock the Bells was a brand new single, you know? I mean, at this point in time, what can you say is a classic album made within the last? I'm talking about by any artist. Like, what album do you think is a classic that was made within the last 10 years by any artist? It would be very difficult, and due to the fact people don't put out albums like they used to. I could tell you, as we started to transition from more buying CDs to the more digital stuff, like one of the last classic hip hop albums was the first Game album, the documentary. That album was cold. That album was cold. But you started to see the transitioning from SoundClouds and all that stuff, digital stuff, people putting out, like, people relying more on singles and all that kind of stuff than putting out actual albums. Because I'll be wondering, do people put out actual albums anymore? Like, how do you buy an actual album now? I don't even see CD sections anymore in music sections than in stores anymore. So you just don't. I was a guy that bought a lot of CDs and stuff. So, at the time. So you just started to see the transition. And I'm really trying to think. And that's the problem. Like, within the last 15 to 20 years, what would you say is a classic? Because, like I said, when guys like T.I. and stuff, they started to make a lot of noise, like in the early 2000s when the T.I.s and those guys in the Game came out, you were starting to see the transitioning, the changing of the guards from buying CDs, CD players to now, just watching videos on YouTube or, downloading songs, just snatching songs literally off the computer and stuff. You started to see record stores going out of business like Tower Records and play. Now, the funny thing is they still got Rasputin's, where you can buy, CDs and all that kind of stuff. So you just started to see it. And I'm trying to think, what was the last classic album, not song, album? That's difficult. That's difficult. Because, like I said, when we got into the late 2000s, like I said, you started to see stuff just changing, and you started to see it change dramatically too, quick. The death of, bro, stop it, man. Stop it. Nobody don't want to hear nothing about no Eminem. That's enough. That's what I'm talking about right there. Eminem don't got no classic albums. He sold records. There's no denying that. But as everybody say, Eminem songs didn't age well. Songs didn't age well. So I don't even want to hear anything about Marshall Bruce Batters. Eminem is highly overrated. Oh, yeah. See, yeah, that's what I'm saying. 3 times crazy, Stack of Chips. And now here's the thing, though. Stack of Chips was released on New Tribe through, if I'm not mistaken, the parent company was Capitol Records or EMI, which is a subsidiary of Capitol Records. So that kind of doesn't count as being independent. But yeah, Stacking Chips was dope. Well, Speaker Box, The Love Below is the highest selling album of all time. SIBO Till My Casket Drops. Um, um, Till My Casket Drops. That album was cold, but actually, the one before that, Tales from the Crypt, the one with Murder Daddy Red. That album was, when I say that album, that album SIBO came out with. Till My Casket Drops was hard, but Tales from the Crypt, that was that was a banger. Gas Chamber by SIBO was a banger. His like debut album. You know what? I gotta admit, I'm not very familiar with. I know who Freddie Gibbs is, but I don't know his music. But I am gonna do my own interpretation of my own rendition of classic hip hop albums by a group. I'm definitely gonna talk about the first Cypress Hill album. Of course, the Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep. When it comes to who I think was the best East Coast group as far as consistency go, I can make a strong argument pertaining to Mobb Deep. You can make a strong argument that Mobb Deep is the greatest duo of all time. Mobb Deep didn't make, when I say Mobb Deep never made a bad album, and I don't count that album they made with G Unit, because Hell on Earth, you could play that. Mobb Deep, you could literally put in a Mobb Deep album and you could listen to Mobb Deep from top to bottom without having to push the fast forward. You would even listen to the you know what I'm saying? You would even listen to the skits and stuff. Yeah, I talked about that. No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying. I'm saying Mobb Deep. I can make an argument that Mobb Deep. Listen, Mobb Deep from every album they made, from Juvenile Hell all the way up to America's Nightmare. All Mobb Deep's albums were good, and for the most part, Mobb Deep did a lot of their own music. Mobb Deep, I really can make an argument that they the greatest duo of all time. The thing is, with a Tribe Called Quest, a Tribe Called Quest was considered a rap group, but they really only had two rappers. And of course, you know, and Outkast is gonna always be in the discussion for greatest duo. Oh, Earl Sweatshirt dude with strange dude that's affiliated with Tyler. Yeah, I heard of him. I seen a couple of songs by him, but like I wasn't like moved by him and stuff. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not hating on EPMD. EPMD, I'm just saying it was just something about Mobb Deep's music. Mobb Deep, it was just something about their music, the way they put together their samples and put together their drum patterns. Mobb Deep, they songs used to rattle your speakers. Crazy bass line, crazy hooks. You know what I'm saying? Hot bars. The group, you know, shout out to the late great Prodigy. It was just something about how they was like they fit well together and they had that chemistry. So that's what I'm saying about Mobb Deep, where I could say arguably I can make an argument that they the greatest duo of all time. Yeah, Havoc is a hell of a producer because that survival of the fittest. There are certain songs that you know that's finna be a banger. You just when dudes say there's a war going out outside, I was like, and then dudes say you find out who you true people's when you upstate bleeding. Like I said, Mob Deep, they was them dudes. They was them dudes. I'm telling you, if they had a versus, if they still was doing verses and Mob Deep went up against a certain group, they would be hard to beat. Oh, shout out to Pimp C, man. Shout out to Pimp C. Shout out to the late great Pimp C. MF Doom, don't know who he is. Don't know who he is. So I'm not even gonna lie. I don't know who he is. He got to be somebody. There's a few people that went under the radar. A few people. A dude that should have been over the radar is Benny Siegel. But Benny Siegel was intentionally held back by Jay-Z because Benny Siegel is a hell of a rapper. That's why a lot of cats that was on Rockefeller, a lot of cats felt that Benny Siegel was a better rapper than Jay-Z, but then they wouldn't put no money behind Benny Siegel. Cause one of my all-time favorite Benny Siegel songs is this song called Bread and Butter. That song is, when I say that beat is like bananas. But a lot of people said that was affiliated with Rockefeller. They said that Jay-Z, and Jay-Z always been a hater. He always been a hater. That's what he do. Man, Benny Siegel killed Jay-Z on that Change the Game album when he said, I keep the heat right under the wife beat. That was it. Benny Siegel killed Jay-Z. Benny Siegel killed Jay-Z's whole once Benny Siegel. And that's why Jay-Z would purposely not put no real promotion behind anything Benny Siegel put out because Jay-Z was a hater. Benny Siegel was hard. Oh yeah, shout out to the late great Jay Dilla. Jay Dilla produced one of my favorite A Tribe Called Quest songs. Pen in the Pad. Love that beat. My pad and my pen. Uh-oh, you didn't know. My beat and my... That beat is so hard. I think that album is called The Love Movement. That was like the last official album that A Tribe Called Quest made on Job Records. The Love Movement was cold. Oh, the bad influence, man, who could forget that? Rapping Ron's back with a bomb section. Man, shout out to the late great Rapping Ron, man. Shout out to Aunt Dilly Dog, bad influence coming out of East Oakland. Not, pH balanced. You ain't heard shit yet. All wrapped up. Um, the bomb got me tripping on some way out shit. You better stay out. Yeah, man. Shout out to Rapping Ron and Dilly Dog, man. All right, you guys. Appreciate you. I've been on here 40 minutes, so I got to get some rest because I got to get up and go to work. Appreciate you guys. We definitely going to continue this discussion. Oh, put in the comment section your greatest hip-hop duel, because we going to do that next. That's going to be the next discussion. I'm going to come up with about 10 rap groups, and we going to do an hour long or maybe an hour plus long, stream about rap's greatest duel. I mean, shit, Cypress Hill count? That's what I'm saying. Like they kind of like in the same category with a Tribe Called Quest. It was really only 2 dudes rapping, but it was like 3 members of Cypress Hill. But yeah, we gonna have that discussion. But yeah, appreciate you guys.